Hi, welcome to my Classroom Observations digital story. I'm Jessica, and today we're just going to be going through some of the experiences and lessons I've learned through observing an elementary art classroom. I was placed at E.P. Razor Elementary School. It is in Denton ISD. It's about 15 minutes from the UNT campus, a little bit past Argyle. A little bonus detail about this location, the drive to get there is very gorgeous from UNT. It's 15 minutes on some back roads taking you through some ranches and private property. The teacher I was observing really enjoys this drive. It's a very calm neighborhood and it has a very tight-knit and small community. So the teaching style that my teacher employed was choice-based learning. Here are two examples of resources that she provided me with, showing me how she got to the stage in her teaching. This was her 11th year in teaching. She had been teaching 10 years not using this style, but this was the first year she had tried employing this and said that it was a serious game changer. Choice-based learning in an art classroom just means that you're giving your students more options. In the sake or the case of my teacher, she would provide students with options such as stations, choosing between different projects or different kinds of mediums, but trying to teach the same overall theme or lesson. So as we go through the classroom and what it looks like in the next few slides, you're going to see how the classroom reflects the way that this teacher teaches her art goals. So for the classroom, when you walk in directly to your left, you can see the collage station. So right there, there's just a lot of materials and supplies that students can use to make a collage. There's stencils, pencils, markers, a lot of magazine clippings and pages. If students want to do collage that day, they'd head right over there. You can also see one of the first groupings of desks in this picture right about here. My teacher separated the students into groups depending on wherever they want to sit, and right here you can see there is the name of the artist. That's how the teacher refers to this group of students that is sitting at a specific time. If you look a little bit to the right, so this is a pretty much comprehensive view of the classroom if you look from left to right. So right in the middle, it continues. You can see the sculpture station right here in the back. Here is probably where most of the action happens. It's a good thing that it's in the most open part of the classroom. She has a lot of adhesives in this cart right here, glue, tape, hot glue, anything like that. And then some recyclable materials to make sculptures out of. You can see cardboard boxes. There's pom-poms, anything three-dimensional that can go in a sculpture would be right here. Also, parents are encouraged to donate anything that can be reused for art purposes, and it would all be stored there. To the next one, you can see this is the painting station. It makes perfect sense that it is right next to all of the sinks so that there can be cleanup right away. This area also has a lot of traffic just because of the constant cleanup required. There's drying racks, as you can see on the right, aprons at level with the student's height, and the paint and cleaning supplies all at their level as well. Continuing on to the other side of the classroom, she has a bulletin board discussing artistic behaviors. This is one of the things that she focuses on teaching with her students, since a lot of their activities, especially as they grow older, are choice-based, depending on what they want to do and how they want to utilize the lesson for that unit. So it just takes us through here the cycle of artistic behaviors, coming up with an idea, gathering supplies, creating, engaging, cleaning, and it's like a constant cycle. Students are encouraged to draw back on this whenever they are making decisions on their creations or working through their projects. Right underneath that, however, is also the drawing station. There's a bunch of stuff here, and a lot of students just feel really comfortable working with drawings, so some students stay in here for a while. There's stencils and different kinds of paper, pencils, crayons, anything like that. And then moving on to the last station is architecture. And this was an interesting station. When I first saw this, I didn't realize that it was a station at all. I just noticed that in some of the classes, some students would go to the back and work on like Legos or building constructions, and just I thought it was their safe space, but it turns out this is actual architecture. As I sat with the students and watched what they were doing, they were actually attempting to make buildings and different kinds of rooms and structures. So while it probably was some de-stress for some of these students, they had a purpose and goal in mind attached to the goals for that unit. Moving on, this is the last picture of the classroom that I have, but this is showing their goals and their learning targets for the unit. So this unit for this 9 weeks was color and value. So throughout whatever any of the grades were doing, all of them are focusing how they can integrate color and value into their pieces. And also she has a little library. It goes a little bit farther to the right here, but she has a whole nice little library of newer, well-designed, and very visually striking and illustrated books for children. She reads these out loud to the younger classes. Every class period, they get to read a new book. And I think this is a really nice thing to have available, and allow the students to look at them and read them and learn some lessons, because there's some lessons in here that they really take to heart, such as dealing with like if they make a mistake, or how they can play with color, and how they can interact with being inspired by classic artists. So the schedule for the average day for my teacher is here, and it is color-coded just the same way that she does, which she really enjoyed following to keep everything organized. From 7:15 to 7:40, there was morning duty, doors to the cafeteria. This is interesting and important to remember, because during her lunch period, she actually gets to have that in her classroom. She does not have to do lunch duty or anything like that, so this gets taken care of in the morning, and after that, it's like full classroom time. Homework support and prime time in these two slots, these are helping with students in other subjects. So at this point when I was observing, they were starting to do STAR testing in math and science. Those were the subjects that my teacher was available to tutor at that time. And for all of the grades, they had 50 minutes of art once a week. So this was the way the schedule looked for Monday through Thursday, so that every day she would see a new section of 5th graders, a new section of 1st graders, a new section of 3rd graders. So she would see every student once a week for 50 minutes. The only time that was different was on Fridays. They had club, which meant that the whole schedule was taken apart, and students got to pick extracurriculars they could work on that day. So she might see a few students that chose her club to work with on that day as well. Also, something she noted was that she was able to get a few more minutes for each of her class periods, but in turn for that, they took out the passing period. So as you can see, it goes from 8 to 8, from 11 to 11, from 11:50 to 11:50. Like, there's no passing period. It's just constant going the entire time. And here are some examples I have of art. Brace yourselves. It is some really cool stuff. Actually, some of this got to be displayed at the Greater Denton Art Council, and it's very cool how they came about these decisions. So I noticed that some students were able to create different solutions. So in the lower grade, their choices were limited to stations, so they would have a set project, and the students could pick between which project they wanted. So this one, they had to make a flower, cut out the piece in the middle, and then the petals, and glue it together. But this student decided to color the flower on the paper and then cut around it entirely, and she seemed to have a really fun time with doing that. We had a scavenger in one of our classes. This little girl was known to, in every class period, go around the classroom and find things that her peers had dropped and try to make a art piece out of the things on the floor. So that was her creation of that day. And the older grades had a lot of fun with YouTube tutorials. The older grades, so 4th and 5th, got to pick whatever they wanted to do, as long as they were utilizing color and value to create their final project. The final project was called WOW Projects. They had to make 2 for every 9 weeks. So as long as they made something that aligned with the goals, they were able to do that. So YouTube tutorials were popular, And as you can see, some kids are really good at making exactly what they're showing in the videos. Next, we have some sculptures in the upper and lower grades and some paint and color. This one right here was a PS4 that was recreated by one of the 4th grade students. Actually, he was in 5th grade. And this is all cardboard and tape that he made to look just like a PS4, down to the headphones and the controller. I believe the student was a 2nd grader, and she made a roll-up bed set for her American Girl doll, the mini one, she said specifically. And this student right here made a TV complete with a slot for a CD to actually come in and out. And these students experimented with 3D form as well. This is a family of monsters. They were very excited about it, and you can tell they meticulously wrapped the yarn around the boxes. And this was 2 students working together, and I didn't see them fight not once. They were very goal oriented and working off of each other, taking suggestions. And it was really nice to watch because they were very passionate about their idea. And this student right here, she made a bunny. She originally wanted to make it out of felt because there was felt, but when she found out it was for the next project, she decided to make it out of paper, and she was still really proud of how it came out. And then you can see some experimentation with paint here. The student laid some tape down, painted around it, and then peeled the tape off to show the letters underneath. And this student didn't know what this stencil said. It actually says boom, but they put it upside down so they couldn't read it, and thought that maybe that sounded like alien speak, so they decided to make an alien themed picture that had a whole little story and background to it. So as I said earlier, there were different options. Here's an example of clubs on Friday. So one of the clubs for the younger grades was Sculpture Club. So these students got to make sculptures out of puzzle pieces. Another club they had for the older grades was the Bob Ross Club. So we all got together and got to watch a Bob Ross video and paint while he painted. And stations, I explained earlier, they have a preset project that you can choose between. And this one was the flowers. There was also one where you could cut up pieces of cardboard and make a face. There was a stencil one. There was a printmaking one using foam pieces. And the 4th and 5th graders, like I said earlier, got to decide what they wanted as long as it fit in with color and value. And a few experiences really quick that I experienced through watching this classroom was how they behaved. Since they had a lot of decisions to make on their own, they were very self-motivated, so they behaved most of the time, especially 3rd, 4th, and 5th. I did witness one meltdown, as you can see that I made a little note right here. The student was known to get very disappointed with herself when her product didn't go the way she had planned, and it resulted in a lot of screaming and crying, and I didn't really know what to do in that moment. But the teacher, knowing the student, just left her alone for a minute, and when it was time to follow instructions, she eventually just got up and started doing what she needed to do. I thought that was really cool that my teacher knew exactly how to handle her, and she had said that that had happened the week before, and she actually altered the options she had this week to align with thinking about how the student might react to failing. So she gave her another opportunity to work on that. And finally, for my classroom, what do I want to do? So I'm going to answer 3 questions really quick about how I took this information and how I plan to utilize it for my own classroom. So number 1, what procedures, routines, and transitions might you institute in your future classroom? So before going into this, I hadn't really considered choice-based learning. I always imagined doing specific projects to teach specific skills in the quickest way possible. But after going through this, I think there's some of these like stations, and there's a lot of opportunities to put this into a 5E lesson. While I might not go completely choice-based, I think some of the things like giving them options between different art making activities, or using them for hooks or explorations could be really useful. Also, the reading the books for the younger grades seems like a really nice hook. Even for older grades, I think I might institute that in my future classroom, because it teaches a lesson at the beginning that all the students experience together, and that you can look back on and reference throughout that week or lesson. And number two, how might you ensure that future students actively participate in groups, manage supplies and equipment with very limited teacher direction? I saw this work out so well in my observing teacher's classroom because she had them sit where they wanted to. They were grouped into groups. She had a clear schedule, and everyone knew where everything was and what to do with the materials. There was like an unspoken agreement that this is where everything goes. This is what you put back. This is how you treat the materials. And she had an exit and entrance routine. So when the kids came in, they could not walk into the room until she said it was okay, and she said hi to each one of them. And leaving the classroom, she would call on the quietest student or table and get in line inside the classroom before they all exited together. I think I would do that so that everyone has, an idea of what's going on and what needs to happen without the teacher having to direct each student individually all the time. And finally, number three, how might you ensure that your classroom is safe and organized to support learning objectives and accessible and to most students? I think the main thing, and especially for the first two questions, is organization of the classroom. I think if the classroom is organized and the students understand why it is organized in that way, it will be safe and organized as well. Because if everything's working the way it should be flowing with the environment. And that is really important to me. I think just like how my observing teacher has her classroom organized based on how she teaches, that's something that I would like to do as well, to make sure there's no miscommunication on what needs to get done. And that is all. I ran a little bit over time. I'm so sorry, but that had a lot of information to cover. Thank you so much for watching my presentation, and I hope y'all have a great summer.